Hi, I'm Dr. Isaac Halliday at Lodestar Physical Therapy, and I am here with Justin Hosman, who's a personal injury attorney and a partner at Steele Adams Hosman with over 10 years of experience. Um, so good to have you on, Justin.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming or having your assistant schedule you to come on.
That's right.
It's good to have you. Um, yeah, tell us. I mean, this is the first time I'm meeting you too. Uh,
Very exciting.
I mean, I've heard about you. I've met your dad. I've met Karen.
Yeah.
So, tell,
I
yeah,
hope I
tell.
hope it's as good as you hoped, you know.
I hope so too. Yeah, just what do you tell us about yourself? What do you like doing? Hobbies, family.
So family, I've got three kids, 7, 5, and 3. So it's pretty busy. Not a lot of time for extra things, but when we do have extra time, our family loves Disneyland. Probably not unique. Um, I love, we got motorcycles a couple of years ago. We really enjoyed that. It's kind of like a lifelong dream to get on bikes. Um, I like, big fan of music, kind of make it a hobby to make music with computers and synthesizers, weird stuff like that. And love books, movies. The current book obsession is Dungeon Crawler Carl at our house. I don't know if you've heard about it. It
I have
is
not.
it is
No.
completely wild. So we're nerds. We're major nerds at our house.
Dungeon Crawler Carl.
That's right. Yeah.
I love it. I'll look it up. Uh, that's awesome. Cool. Well, man, with over 10 years of experience, you've probably seen all sorts of stuff, I'm guessing.
Yes.
And then
That's right.
I guess when did Steel Adams Hosman become a thing? Have you always been, you just like came out of the gate and started it or partnered or
No, I kind of had a little bit of a winding path to get to personal injury. I actually clerked out of law school and during law school at a criminal defense firm. His name is Josh Barron, wonderful guy, awesome mentor. So I did criminal defense work, and then I was a prosecutor for some time for the city of West Jordan, and then I got connected with one of my law school friends who invited me to come work at a personal injury law firm, and then shortly after that we started. It was actually Hosman Adams or Adams Hosman with a buddy from law school, and then Steele joined us that same year. So it would have been 2019 when we started. We had just had our first baby. We just bought a house. And in fact, like a week after we had our first kid, we started the firm. It was, in retrospect, very silly, but we
that's
made
a
it. We made it.
that is a big year.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's cool. Yeah, I remember I started Lodestar Physical Therapy in 2020. I'm like, I got nothing else. Like, let's just throw the
Let's
dart
go.
and here we go.
Yeah. 2020 is wild. That was COVID.
Yeah, it was
That's a scary
COVID.
time to start a business. Good job. That
It
is white
was
knuckle.
it was like if this doesn't work, and then I'll go be an electrician, I guess. But
Yeah.
we're
Yeah,
still
starting a
around, so
business has that like burning the ships thing, right?
it really
When you're
does.
like, I have to make this work. You have to make it work. And that's kind of where
Yeah,
we were at. So it's exciting and terrifying at the same time.
yeah, yeah. Oh, there was man, there's a quote that I just oh, it was a quote by Winnie the Pooh. And he says he said something along the lines of like I get to where I'm going by leaving where I've been. And it's like,
Mm,
it's kind of like that burning the ships and just like if I gotta
that's
get
right.
there, then I gotta leave where I'm at. And
Yeah. That would be
and
the Winnie the Pooh
so
version of burning the ships. It's so like heartwarming.
it is. It is.
I
Winnie the Pooh's
appreciate
like
that.
one of my
I like
favorites.
that.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I get to where I'm going by leaving where I've been or something like
Yeah.
that. Walking away
I
from
mean,
where
it's
I've been,
so true.
something.
Well, and like when you're growing a business or when you're trying to do new things, it's always that. So we've been trying to grow more, and um, it's really uncomfortable,
Yeah.
because you play dual roles when you own a business and you work in the business.
Hmm.
I think all of us here are really comfortable being attorneys, but nobody taught us how to run a business. It's a very, very different skill set, right? And so it's
Totally.
uncomfortable kind of realizing kind of how much you don't know about that and how much you have to improve. And it's good, but
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
definitely where I haven't been, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%. I'm in the same boat now. It's like we're going, but it's like, oh man, takes money to grow. And then you still got to pay
Right.
the employees you have, and then
Right.
still got to pay yourself.
I I have to start a podcast apparently.
Yeah, apparently I got to do this like every other white male in America.
That's right. That's right. Here we are. Here we are.
Here we are. Here we are. Well, tell us a little bit about SAH. Like how many attorneys do you have? What do you cover? Is it just
Yeah.
PI? What is it? Yeah, tell us all about it.
So the majority of our people at the firm do PI, but there is a little bit of a split. So Chase Adams,
Oh, you just froze.
he actually did and
Hold on, you
does a huge multi-million
go
dollar.
back a little bit. You froze.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Um, so the firm is split a little bit. Most of us do personal injury work, but Chase, who is the Adams and Steele Adams Hosman, so his history is in civil work. So he does a lot of civil litigation. He did a big civil jury trial last year and had a really amazing outcome. It was like a multi-million dollar dispute, still being fought at this point, from what I understand. Um, and he also does a lot of corporate counsel work. So that is part of the business. I don't work in that. I do PI. So there's Chase and three other attorneys that do that civil work. They've got a paralegal on the PI side. There is me, Jeff, Michaela, Weston for attorneys, and then we have quite a bit of support staff to help those attorneys run their caseloads. It's um, it's kind of intense as far as the requirements because one of the ways that we've distinguished ourselves as a firm is that we file a lot more lawsuits than most. I think that we're close to about 6 out of 10 cases that come through our firm usually have a lawsuit filed, and usually that's because the insurance company just isn't understanding or is refusing to understand what's happened to our clients. And so we kind of have to use the court system to kind of force them to see what's going on and understand the risk involved. But as a result of that, we usually get significantly higher outcomes for the client than they would had we not filed the lawsuit.
Nice. Cool. How long does that process typically take, right? Because from my understanding, right, if you like someone gets in an accident, they get hurt, goes to the insurance usually will be like, cool, we'll pay you X amount.
Yeah.
Um, and then if they agree to that, it's like it's over, right? Once they sign something.
Yep. That's right.
But if they're like, hey, I don't, that's barely covers my car, or I don't think that's right, and they come to
Mhm.
you, how long is that typical process of, and I know it can vary, but
Yeah,
um,
no, it's a great question because I think it's a question. I think there's a lot of like weird information out there. And the other part is that our clients, and you've seen this, are really in a bad spot when they are coming to see a PT or when they're coming to see a personal injury attorney. I mean, if you can imagine um, getting injured really badly, not having transportation, and kind of like more likely than not also having a brain injury and going through like the emotional and the mental stress of a brain
yeah,
injury all at the same time, it's very difficult. And so they feel an intense amount of kind of pressure in their lives, like financial pressure and time pressure,
mhm,
to be able to solve um, financial problems that are right before them, right in their faces.
yeah,
And usually part of our job is to say, hey, if you have a permanent injury and you like, let's just say that you need to go see a PT once a month for the rest of your life to kind of make sure that you're maintaining the progress and the strength that you need to manage your injury. um, I need to make sure you have a bank account set aside so that you can pay for that PT, because the most tragic thing that I see is when somebody walks away from a crash and they are in a lot of pain and they settle their case and they don't have that money. What's happens is that they don't go get the care because they can't afford it, and then their injuries get worse, and the entire quality of their life just gets progressively worse because they don't have the money set aside because they're dealing with other financial pressures to be able to get the care that they need. And so it's a really hard thing to navigate when people are in that position. They have problems now, and we're trying to take a step back and look at like the long term for them. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. But anyway, that's not really the answer that you're looking for. So what you
Yeah.
described is something that we call the pre-litigation process. And pre-litigation is the idea that we want to understand the injury. We want to put together a good kind of packet of evidence that we call a demand that we can send to the insurance company saying, hey, insurance company, here is all the evidence of the injury that you need to be able to give us like the policy limits or the money that we need to take care of this person. And then they usually send a first offer that's a terrible lowball offer. It's not the
Mhm.
final offer. It's an invitation to negotiate. So we negotiate, and then if we can't get to a good position in negotiation, then and if the client's okay with it, we file the lawsuit. That pre-litigation process, the timeline depends heavily on what the injuries are. If the injuries are simple and we understand the timelines for recovery for those injuries, 6 to 9 months is a pretty conservative, like it's a pretty good timeline to be able to like get through that process. 12
Yeah.
months is kind of like a, you know, also in there if it gets more complex. Um, if you file a lawsuit and you file a lawsuit after that initial process, you're looking at about 1.5 to 2 years to get all the way to a jury trial. Um, but the grand majority of cases don't get to the jury trial point. At some point during that litigation process, the insurance company and the attorneys kind of get to some resolution together where the insurance company is finally saying, I see the evidence, I understand what you're saying, and we need to take care of this person. But that I think usually will happen at the year mark after you file a lawsuit. That's
Yeah.
probably like a timeline you could count
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, and then, yeah, those, in fact, when you're, uh, like talking about like when, right, when you first in that accident, you have like all this stuff and you're like, all you want to do is like, what can I do to like make sure I can get back to work tomorrow or like
Yep.
have a car, right? And a lot of people take that first offer from the insurance because it's like, cool, it gets my car back, right?
Yep.
Or they don't have pain that day. And so they're like, oh, I just need my car back. Like,
Yeah.
and then a week later, they're like, oh,
Whoops.
my neck is hurting. Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and here's an important distinction to be made too, is that the car part of your claim and the injury part of your claim are two separate claims. So they actually go to different policies and different insurance adjusters entirely. And so
Mhm.
usually they will get their car kind of fixed within the first month, maybe 2 months. I will say this, the recovery for the property damage is almost always disappointing to our clients. And that has
Yeah.
a lot to do with the nature of vehicles.
Mhm.
Vehicles they just don't hold value.
Yeah.
It's not a fun thing. So we have some
Yeah.
connections that we give to our clients to help them through that process if it's like a total loss, and we coach them through it. But usually our clients get that resolved within the first month or
Oh,
so.
nice.
So that's not something they necessarily have to worry about for that whole, 6 months to a year to like 2 year process. That's not part of
Yeah.
it, but
That sucks.
it's still really frustrating. I
It's
mean,
still
when you live in a
frustrating.
place like
Yeah.
Utah, you have to have a car. You
Yeah.
have to have a car.
You have to. Yeah. Unless you live downtown in your little bubble, you just go from your
That's
apartment,
right.
walk 2 blocks to work, whatever,
Yeah.
right? But That's not
Yeah.
the majority of us.
No.
Um, so like that brings up the next thing is right. So if they're in litigation, right, these patients they're building they're basically accruing all this medical debt essentially like um and I know like some people that I've had are worried about that. They're like, oh, well, how much is this going to cost? What is like, what is that like? What do you tell those patients? You know, that they're like, oh, I have to go to this doctor again or that doctor. Like, because the burnout is also real with medical appointments. You know, like I've had patients that they're like, you're my eighth visit to a doctor this week. And I'm like, that's frustrating and exhausting.
Yeah. I'm frustrated for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
what do you tell them with, you know, like, hey, the process is going, like, don't worry about your medical bills really, or do you be like, oh, hey, here's what we do?
It's so this actually gets to kind of one of the core tensions, I think, of a personal injury case that is it can be really frustrating to be dealing with this. So um let me kind of go back because when you're in a car crash, there are essentially three buckets of potential money recovery places, and they go sequentially. So the first bucket that you go through is called PIP insurance. It's personal injury protection insurance. Almost everybody in Utah has about $3,000 of this. It's actually legally required to have at least $3,000 in PIP coverage. The idea behind PIP coverage is that it doesn't matter whether you're at fault or not. You have $3,000 of runway to go see a doctor if you've been in a crash. So the idea is to kind of like take away the idea of involving attorneys at all and putting stress on the courts by giving this little bit of medical runway for everyone. I think it's a very cool thing. It has other problems with it, but I think that it's a sound idea. So anyway, that pays out no matter what. The medical people that you see, if they get the policy number, they can just directly send their bills to the PIP carrier, and the PIP carrier pays them. So that's first bucket. Second bucket, we actually, and by the way, PIP is your own insurance that pays that. And so we move from our own insurance, then we move to the at fault party's insurance once we've exhausted that PIP. Now we can make a claim against the at fault party. And this is where it gets a little hard, is that a lot of your claim budget, if you will, like what you can get for medical care, has to do with how much the at fault party has, how much their coverage is. So the lowest possible limit in Utah was just changed recently. It's $30,000. So you'll see $30,000, $50,000, and $100,000 are the most common policies. And so once we know that, what we essentially know is like this is kind of like the maximum recovery we can get from that person that's at fault. If we get that, then we can move to the third bucket and we go back to your own insurance. That's called underinsured motorist coverage. And that is, it kicks in the event that the person that hit you didn't have enough insurance to cover you. And that it's got the same kind of like policy tier. And so when we look at all of that together, we get an idea of the maximum allowable recovery. And the saddest cases that I have are cases where the person is very, very injured, and the policy limits of the person that's at fault are far too low to ever compensate them. And that's actually far more common than everybody understands. You're
Yeah.
really at the mercy of the person that hits you and whether or not they have like a responsible policy.
Yeah. Or a
Um,
policy at all.
Right, right. Yep.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, and this is kind of the weird part to kind of get to your question, is that as an attorney, we're looking at how much the bills are stacking up against the budget, essentially, and
Mhm.
how much that leaves the client at the end of the day. And so you're always trying to, because the medical care itself is evidence of the injury. And so we need the client to get the medical care to create like, so that we have evidence of injury. But you also don't want to have so much medical care that the client can't recover anything either. And that's the balance. That's the hard
Yeah.
part about helping with these cases is the client says, well, I need this procedure, and I say, well, there's not a lot of budget for it. These are kind of our options. And so the client and I have to work together, and I just have to kind of tell them these are the trade-offs for the decisions. I'm totally supportive of whatever you want to do. I just want to make sure you know the full picture here. They're hard
Yeah.
conversations because
Yeah.
usually there's
That is
not like a clear right answer most of the time.
right. And it's a lot of like push and pull too between insurance and medical providers and, making sure that we're not just going crazy on it because we're like, hey, cool. And, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. And at the end of the day too, like, I mean, a lot of the times, like at least with the cases that I've worked on, right, the attorney will come back and be like, hey, this is how much we ended up getting. And like, we still want to be able to pay the client, like, and then we always negotiate prices and come down
Right.
to so that everyone gets paid and the client gets some money there in the end as well too. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, yeah. And then like some, because like, oh man, uh, let's see, what was it? It was when you were talking about like, um, right when people are like they get injured and you're like, hey, like you're gonna need PT for a long time after this serious injury or whatever. I actually had a patient who it wasn't a car accident, it was like a property accident, like a slip and fall on a property that wasn't taken care of
Yeah.
or something like that. And she did not go through an attorney, ended up having like rotator cuff surgery, a whole bunch of like, I mean, it
Oof.
was pretty hefty, ended up going to PT, and then like it just wasn't working. And then I found her later she was referred from another patient. And
Yeah.
I mean, it took a good 6 months to a year of rehab, but I mean, her shoulder got back, right?
Which is
But
awesome.
by then it was way too late for, things had been done and signed and money
Yep.
put out. And so, I mean, I felt bad for her that she went through all that, but also good that she got her shoulder back from, not
100%.
lifting 2 pounds over the head or to back. She's like, this is the best part of my body. Like, I was like, sweet.
That's an amazing
Just
outcome. I love that.
wish that it could have, come through someone else's insurance rather than you having to pay
Right.
for this out of pocket.
Right.
So
Then dealing with health insurance. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So like y'all aren't as bad as the jokes and TV make you sound.
That's right. Just we're just
Um,
slightly better.
just slightly better.
Yeah.
Um, so like that, so my question now is like, because like, I mean, every profession has it, right? You have some people in the profession that like make those jokes actual reality.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then you have those in the profession that like don't, right? And so I think that's a huge misconception too, especially of attorneys, of like, oh, y'all are just crooks. I don't know. What do you say to that?
Yeah, it's so I am a first generation attorney in my family. I really kind of like stumbled into going to law school a little bit. I really boxed myself in by studying political science and philosophy. Like I really didn't have anywhere else to go, you know? And I like the idea of being an attorney kind of probably more than the reality of it. I just didn't know what was going on. And so, so I grew up in Brigham City, like hauling hay, building fences,
Yeah.
like that's how I grew up. And I'd never met an attorney. Um, and it was really kind of eye-opening to me as I became a professional and started seeing more professionals is how different each one can be. There's a broad spectrum of really good professionals and then not so good, and then a lot of middle of the road. And it's really weird, actually. I think it's jarring because I think that the way that I grew up, I just figured like, look, all attorneys like just do a good job. They're professionals. They all know what they're talking about. or accountants or, whatever
Yeah.
profession it can
Yep.
be. But it's been eye-opening to kind of see that. And I have to be careful about this, like with ethics. So like what I'm about to say, I can't promise for anybody if they were going to
Yeah.
be our client.
Yeah.
But we've had these really, what's hard is that for a person to shop for a personal injury attorney, they actually have no way of knowing who's good and who's not. I mean, what's really wild about shopping for an attorney is that you're put in this bizarre position of really not having the tools to distinguish between who's good and who's not. And you couldn't like try one and then compare results with another one. You're kind of just you're on the train with that
Yeah.
once you've done it. But we have these cool experiences where people have been with prior attorneys. It's like a handful of experiences, and then they switch to us, and we've been able to get far more than the top offer at the previous firm. So like a good example of that is we had one person who, and I actually like I had a conversation with this attorney who said, "There's no way that you're ever going to be able to get more than I think it was $50,000 on this claim," and we ended up getting 550,000 on the claim.
Whoa.
And that's the thing that I think is crazy that people don't get is that you're talking about it's a decision that can actually change by a multiplier. We had another one where it actually came through like several different hands, but like the opening offer with the previous firm I think was like $100,000, something like that, and we ended up going to trial on that case and we got over 6 million from a jury.
Oh
And
my
so
word.
yeah, like it matters. It matters a lot. It's
Yeah,
just hard to know. It's hard to know
it is.
because the advertising is so intense, and
Hmm.
you only know who you know, and like the advertising. It's
Hmm.
I don't envy people who are doing that shopping. I think it's hard.
Yeah. That's wild. Like so what makes the difference then between, $100,000 and 6 million? Like, what is it that
Yeah,
you
so
like do to that's a huge gap to
yeah. So one thing that I think is interesting is that how what is that phrase, like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take kind of thing?
Oh yeah. Yep.
When you are pushing a case forward, you particularly in pre-litigation. So this is something that people don't know about how these claims work is that before we file a lawsuit, an attorney doesn't actually have that much power to collect evidence. We do have a team of private investigators that we use very consistently, and they're very good at collecting evidence. But like, if I wanted to know so like for example, if some company hit our client, if I wanted to know the internal workings of that company and know more about the driver and their policies and procedures, I could never know that prior to filing a lawsuit. Because once we file a lawsuit, we now have the power of the court to send subpoenas
Yeah.
and to make discovery requests. And this gets to that shots you don't take thing on that $6 million case. We were in depositions, and some of these depositions were absolutely astounding. The things that these employees were willing to tell us about what was going on, and it was those admissions that made the case valuable. And so, I think if you had to boil it down, if you're shopping for an attorney, I think you want to know how often they file cases, how often they're doing depositions, how often are they going to kind of like find out what's there, because there could be something extremely valuable there, but you could never know it unless you file the lawsuit, unless you do the
Yeah.
deposition. So I don't necessarily think that we're like super smart. I think that we're just more willing to kind of like roll up our sleeves and do that hard work, because litigation it's harder, it's riskier, it's more uncomfortable than kind of just settling cases
Yeah.
out prior to filing a lawsuit.
Yeah. That's cool. Just having people that go to bat for you, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. Insurance companies are money making businesses. They're
Mhm.
not your friend. Their job is to have profit for their shareholders
Of course. Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the
Of
end of the
course.
day.
Yeah.
And so they don't, they just don't have that obligation to the insured to take care of them. And it, you know, sometimes they can be kind of a little bullish or bullies about it. And
Mhm.
that bugs the crap out of me. So I love to, yeah,
Push him back. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. My red
Yeah.
hair runs deep as far as that goes. Yeah.
I will steal all the souls of insurance companies.
That's right. Because I have none. You
Because I
you may
have
not
none yet.
either. That's right.
If I can't have one, no one can.
Hmm. Hmm.
No. Oh, that's awesome though. Yeah, that's good. Um, so like what I don't know what have you seen then like with like someone they get in the accident, they come to you and they're like, hey, like the injury's not that bad. I like whatever. Um, 2 weeks later, all of a sudden shoulder pain starts coming out more, neck pain starts coming out, back pain starts coming out. Like what do you see like because I see it a lot too with accidents in particular is that whiplash can take I mean sure sometimes it happens right away. Other times it happens 2, 3 days to 2 to 3 weeks after the accident that they get. So what do you tell people who like after the accident they're not hurt or they don't think they're hurt?
Yeah.
What is
It's
your advice for them?
so yeah, I just tell them that's probably the best case scenario for you. Like,
Yeah.
I hope that my client has their health because I've kind of yet to see a case where a client was like fairly compensated for the loss of their health.
Yeah.
Because almost every single one of them would much rather just be healthy than have any amount of money. And I agree with that. I kind of like one of my favorite things to do is to go to the gym in the morning, and it's like my therapy and my mental health. If there was something that blocked me from that, that would be really, really bad for me. It would, and there's just not a lot, there's no amount of money that would kind of convince me that that's a fair trade to not be able to do those things or to pick up my kids and to play with my kids. Um, but, um, oh crap. Remind me the question. Remind me the question.
So like yeah, so like they get in the accident, they're not hurt right away. Like
Ah,
what,
yes. Yeah.
is
So
it too
my,
late for them to come visit you a month later after the accident? Or
um, it's always worth talking to an attorney, I think. I would never just decide by yourself not to. We all
Mhm.
do free consultations to talk about the case, and what's interesting is the way that we get paid is that we get paid a portion of the recovery. So we don't you don't pay us up front. And so we're really, really motivated to tell you if it's not a good case. Because if it's not a good
Yeah.
case, we're not going to get paid either. You know what I mean? There's no reason
Yeah. Yeah.
for us to take
And
a
if
bad case.
yeah, and if you do a bad job on the case, then you get
I don't
paid.
get paid, right?
le-
So we're very like aligned, right? Our
Yeah.
motivations are aligned there. So yeah, there's that. The advice that I always give people is you have $3,000 of PIP, and you also only get one shot at recovery here.
Mm.
I think a lot of people misunderstand that they can like go make a claim, get a little bit of money. If it gets worse, they might be able to go make another claim. It's not like that. It's a one and done situation. So we need to create all of the evidence for all of the injuries so that we can make one single claim and then that's it. And so it's worth kind of checking to make sure you're okay. I think the people that are the worst and the scariest for me are young people that get in really bad crashes and they seem completely fine, like they were in pain for a couple of
Yeah.
weeks and they're like I'm fine. Those guys, I'm convinced that there's just like an army of them that are like have latent injuries because they're so strong, right? They're so
Uh-huh.
like they've got a lot of strength, and that strength really compensates for the lack of like ligamentous um,
Yep.
durability, for lack of better
Yeah.
words. Because my experience with that is uh this guy kicked me in the knee in an indoor soccer game when I was like 13 or 14 and tore my ACL.
Oh my
And
word.
at the time, I didn't know that it was torn because I was playing soccer nonstop. I had this grueling newspaper route where I was biking up and down hills every single morning. So my quads were just, I was jacked. Like I was super strong. And I just didn't know. And so I went a whole
Yeah.
year. I quit my paper route and then all of a sudden my knee started slipping. And
Mm.
that's the way I think about these young kids is just because you're not necessarily feeling it now doesn't mean that there's not some sort of injury there. And it's worth investigating. Like it's worth
Yeah.
taking the time to just check because my
Yeah.
knee injury has been a lifelong thing. It affected the way like I kind of stopped playing soccer, post
Mhm.
high school. I snowboarding has become like hard because in the cold it just my knee hurts like crazy. So a lot of stuff like that is yeah, just it's worth checking out to go see a good doc to make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
To go see Dr. Isaac and just
Yeah.
check you out. You
Yeah.
know, I don't recommend going to like an Instacare. I think that people who are specialists in working on trauma related injuries are usually better. They're usually a little bit more focused in on what to look
Yep.
for. I mean, if the insecure is your only option, do it. Like
Yeah.
don't stop. But
Don't
there's
not.
some
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. There's some really good providers out there who understand the injuries and what's going on kind of
Hmm.
below the surface. And I think it's worthwhile to talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with that too. I mean, I don't want to necessarily like bash on a whole nother health care community, but there's been a lot of people that I've seen go to Instacare and Instacare just like, oh, you're fine. And then they come see me and I'm like, your rotator cuff is torn, or like this
Yeah.
ACL is not intact. Like, I don't know what they missed or didn't look at. And
Yeah.
they're like, well, they were kind of busy that day. I was like, well, that's, like
Yeah.
they gave me some pain medicine and said, if it's not better in a week, go see someone else. I'm like, well, like we could have solved this on that day. Like
A
we
week
could have
ago.
at least identified it, right? Not You're not
Mhm.
going to solve a a rotator cuff or
Yeah.
ACL tear, but
Yeah, and we see this a lot with like emergency rooms too.
mhm,
Emergency room, and the thing is it's not really bagging on like this portion of healthcare. I think with
right.
insecares, they're such generalists that they're just not going to be a specialist with respect
Yeah.
to a trauma related injury from a car crash or something
Yep.
like that. And I think that's an okay thing. And then ERs are just looking for are you dying?
Are you
You
gonna
know what I mean?
die?
Like
No. Cool.
that's that's right. And I think that's okay too. Like an ER
Yeah.
plays a very specific role of like making sure people aren't
Hmm.
dying. And so I think if you can think about it like that, that you know, um, specific doctors do specific things, and it's important that we have specialists. I think that's good. And you bring this up too, like I would trust your body in these scenarios too. Like we talked about how there's kind of like a range of different professionals and people make mistakes. Like if you really are feeling off after you've seen a doctor and the doctor says you're fine, please get a second opinion. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to hurt anything. And like listen to your body because a lot of weird things can happen in a car crash.
Hmm.
Weird
Yeah.
stuff. I
Weird.
mean, I've seen some
Weird
weird
stuff.
injuries, and so I'm constantly kind of learning new things that can happen in those. And so, yeah, listen to your body, go get a second opinion, go get a third opinion because
Yeah.
it matters to get better and it matters to get there sooner.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's one thing in life that we always have, and that's our health, right?
right,
It's either going to be good or it's going to be bad. And if you want a longer, happier life, then take care of your health.
right,
And especially like car accidents, you have that PIP. If you don't like the
right.
first guy you go to, use the PIP on the next guy, right? And get that
Mhm.
second opinion for sure. And it won't cost you any extra.
Yep.
unless the first guy charged you an arm and a leg, I guess.
Right.
In which case, but even then, and I mean, I'll probably talk to some auto adjuster, and they'll be like, "What are you talking about?" But but even then, like the auto industry, like even with that PIP, they have their set limits on what they're going to pay each doctor for
Yeah.
certain procedures. So like one procedure shouldn't take the whole thing. So
Right.
um, right. So it's not like we can just charge your insurance whatever we want because
That's
we
right.
know they'll pay us. They're
Mhm.
only going to pay us what is what is allowed, right? And
Exactly.
it's usually very fair pricing on PIP. So um,
Yeah. And I've only really seen them dispute it heavily in kind of extreme circumstances.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, awesome. Well, it's finally like good to meet you and learn more
likewise.
about you and your business. Is there anything else that is just on top of your mind that you want to talk about, or
No,
we're good
no.
until next
This was
time?
amazing. It was good to meet
This was
you,
good.
Isaac. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. I know. And your like office is just down the street from me. So like,
I didn't know that. Where's your
yeah.
office at?
We're on 13th East and 6070 South, right
Oh my
across from
goodness.
the elementary school, Woodstock Elementary.
You are very
Yeah.
close to us.
Yeah. And you're
I
just
love it.
which brings me to tell everybody where you're located, how to get a hold of you.
Yeah,
And
we are in Cottonwood Heights, 6713 East, 1300 South. Nope,
1300 East.
that's right. I got it wrong. Thank you. Yep, 1300 East, 6713 South. Little office complex up here on the mountainside. And you can go to our website. It's sahlegal.com. You can always shoot me an email too. It's Justin at sahlegal.com.
Cool. Very good. Awesome. Well, have a great weekend, man, and
You too.
we'll keep in
Thanks for taking the
touch.
time.
Yep.
I love it. Thanks, Doc.